Hey Meeple people, how's it going? On today's video, we just got finished playing Three Sisters from 25th Century Games, and this is a game that has grown on us and that we initially didn't like, but then it grew on us to the point where we just can't get enough of it, and we just finished a game with the Rock Gardens expansion that we got from our Kickstarter from Motor City, I think, Sarah?
Yes, it was an add-on for our Motor City Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was an add-on for Motor City Kickstarter. But yeah, I just want to go ahead and talk about this game a little more, and I just love it. I think it's a great game that grew on us. Definitely didn't like it at first, but yeah. So Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure. So yeah, Three Sisters. I played Fleet the Dice game and lost my mind. I had like the same favorite game for like over a decade, and then I played Fleet the Dice game and I was like, I think I have a new favorite game. And it was Fleet the Dice game. So I flippin' love Fleet the Dice game, which is by the same people who designed Three Sisters and its sort of follow-up, Motor City Gameworks. So all three of those games are called loaded roll and writes, and they are roll and writes which are very combo-tastic, so they chain together combos and like a lot of things happen as you play this game. So you're like doing one thing and then it leads to you doing something else, which leads to you doing something else, which leads to you doing something else. And it just like sort of keep going throughout the game. And that's the way that all three of these games are, Fleet, Three Sisters, and Motor City. I love that combo-tastic nature where you chain together all of these actions and they just like keep chaining more and more crazy things happen and things like that. It is so much fun. But the first time we played Three Sisters, I tried really hard to keep my expectations in check because I knew how much I loved Fleet, but I understood that this was a different game and that it was going to be a little different than Fleet. So I tried to keep my expectations in check, but I did suffer just a little bit of disappointment after the first time that we played Three Sisters. And I thought, well, I don't know, that wasn't nearly as fun as Fleet. I didn't like that as much as Fleet. I'm probably not going to keep this game. We'll play it a couple more times, and then probably we'll move it along, right? And then we played like
each game
25 more times. So we've played this game quite a bit. I was actually looking at the score pad. So you have to use 2 score sheets when you play this game. It's a roll and write game, so you use these score sheets to like keep track of everything that you're doing in the game, and you can kind of see we've used up quite a bit of both pads. I think we have about half left, and we'll have to get replacements eventually because it has become like a game that I really, really love. I wouldn't say one of my favorite games, but if we could only keep like X number of games, depending on what X was, this would probably be one of the ones that I would pick. And there's so much cool stuff that adds just a little tiny bit here and there. So we did back the Kickstarter version of this game, and that came with this extra little board right here, and a couple extra tokens. So these extra pieces right here came with this board right here, and it changes up the game just a little bit. I don't entirely remember exactly how this one works. I think it's so normally when you play Three Sisters, you have this action rondel where you are drafting the different dice that are available on the game, and you draft them from these rondel locations. Whenever every player is finished drafting their own die from this rondel, there are 2 dice left over, and the lower value of those dice is a communal action that everybody gets to take. And with this board in play, it just kind of nests like right up here, I think is the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And what happens is everybody takes the communal action of the lowest die that's left, and then the highest die that's left indicates what we're going to do in the next round's conditions, weather conditions that we will have to operate under in the next round. So, for example, if I draft my die and I do my things, and then Nick drafts his die and he does his things, and the 2 dice left, maybe it's a 3 and a 4. We're all going to get to use the 3 as the communal action, which is a normal part of the game. And then the 4 is going to dictate what our weather conditions are for next round. So this one says for the 4, it says at the start of the next round, you take 1 perennial action. So every player gets to do that at the start of the next round. So this little weather track right here changes things up just a little bit, adds just enough little bit of like extra that once you've played through the base game many times and you're ready to add up, just, you know, freshen it up just a little bit, then the weather board here is a nice way to do that. So that was a Kickstarter. I don't know if it was an exclusive. I think it was a Kickstarter exclusive, but that was like a Kickstarter add-on that we got with our Kickstarter copy. And then when the company did Motor City, which was the third game in the series, they released that on Kickstarter or crowdfunding Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think
on Kickstarter. I think they released that on Kickstarter as well, and they had this as an optional add-on for backers of Motor City who also already owned Three Sisters. It was this little rock garden add-on that you could add to your Motor City pledge and use in conjunction with your copy of Three Sisters. So we've only played with this one time, but it was interesting and it changes things up again just a little bit. The way that this works is the die that you draft as your personal die, you also cross off the number on this rock garden page. And there's multiple instances of each number. So like here's a 4, here's a 4. Here's a 4. You have to choose which one of those you're going to cross off, right? And then anytime you complete a column or a row, there are rewards that are part of that column and that row. And when you complete a column or a row, then you will select one of those bonuses. So if I complete this column here, for example, then I could choose to immediately cross out 4 goods on my goods track, or a perennial, or I could water in a section of my garden. So this you just play with, and it's really simple. You just mark off whatever number that you drafted from the rondelle for your personal die. You would just mark that off in your rock garden as well. And there's ways to manipulate your die results in this game through using compost, which lets you add or subtract pips from your die. If you do that, then whatever final number you end up with is the number that you cross off in your rock garden. You can also use stars, which are sort of like bonus actions in the game. You can use those to fill in extra numbers on here if you want to. But those are the only ways that you can fill in spaces in your rock garden, is either by drafting the numbered die that matches the number you want to cross off, or by using stars to fill in these boxes and bubbles down here to cross out extra spaces in here. And like I said, we've only played with the rock garden one time, but it
Madness.
did... What?
Madness.
It was madness. And it wasn't just because of the rock garden. It was because this game is very combo-tastic. So you're doing all these things where you do something and it sort of triggers this domino effect where, like, okay, because I did this, now I also get to do this and this and this. And because I did that, then I also get to do this other thing. So there's this like waterfalling nature of this game where you're always like chaining together these crazy combos and things like that. So the rock guard didn't really like create the chaos in the game. There's already just like a lot of chaos in the game anyway, but it did add one more little detail that you sort of had to remember and incorporate into your strategy. And it was interesting because a lot of times when you're drafting dice from this board right here, you're drafting based on the number of the die, because that relates to your garden plots, which we're trying to fill in, but you're also drafting for the action that it will get you. Sometimes you clearly want a certain thing, right? Like, oh, if I could just mark off a couple things in section 2, that'd be awesome. Or if I could mark off something in my apiary or go to the farmer's market, that would be like perfect for me. But other times, it's not exactly clear exactly what is like the best path forward based on the rondelle and the die results. And even though there's dice manipulation and you can manipulate your dice to be kind of whatever you want them to be, having the rock garden in play just added just a tiny little layer of further strategy when selecting your dice from the rondelle. Because when you're drafting that die, now you could also think about what numbers you needed for the rows and columns to be completed in your rock garden. So at one point, I was trying to work on this column right here because I wanted this 10 victory points. And at one point, I had like a 4 and a 5 left in this column. That was all I had left. And the die results that were out here, I was influenced on which ones I was going to choose based on needing the 4 or the 5 for my rock garden. So normally you'd only consider the rondelle action and the die result that you're drafting. But the Rock Garden, like I said, just adds that little bit of extra strategy when you're drafting those dice of which numbers you need to complete your rows and columns. And because we don't draft more than 8 personal dice in any game, you're only ever going to be able to mark off 8, maybe 10 results in your Rock Garden. So you have to be pretty selective on which ones you're going to mark off in an attempt to get the rewards related to those rows and columns. So Woof. So when we started playing this game, we just started with just the base game. We played that quite a bit. When we started to get just a little tired of this, we incorporated the weather board and we played with that a couple of times. And then when we received the Rock Garden, we kind of tucked it away and we said, we'll try that sometime in the future. And like I said, we just tried it for the first time today. And like Nick had said at the beginning of this game has really grown on me. Like I said, I absolutely adore Fleet the Dice game. It is probably my current favorite game of all time. And I really, really like it. However, Three Sisters has definitely solidified its place in my heart the more we have played it.
Oof. Yeah, the Rock Garden definitely added some things. It wasn't too much because we didn't play with the weather portion.
True. That is something we haven't done yet, is play with the Rock Garden and the weather expansion.
Madness.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because in this particular game, I focused on using, those that know about Three Sisters, the farmer's market, and I got my goods up, so I was getting some nice bonuses. And there was a point in the game where it was like, you got it like 3 times, it felt like. I think maybe even, no, it was 3 times. I picked the die that had the farmer's market action, and then the lowest die was on the farmer's market, and then the end of the round game, or end of the round bonus, was another farmer's market action. And it was just crazy that it was just, it worked out because I had my goods up to a certain point, and it was madness. This game is, like, again, like Sarah said, combo-tastic. If that's a game that you struggle with, because you have to pay attention to a lot. I made the mistake of asking Sarah a question while she was doing her like final rain action. She's like, oh, because like there's so many things.
Concentration, you will lose track of what you're supposed to do next. And if you get lost like that, it is very hard to like figure out what you're supposed to do next. And then continue your turn without making any mistakes. You really got to kind of concentrate on your turn and make sure that you do all of the steps in the right order and that you don't forget to do anything or anything like that. And there is a little notes section on the on one of the pages that you're writing on, but it's just like a tiny little space, and you can mark up all the sheets however you want to help you to remember things. So one thing that I do is that, like, there are certain bonuses that you can unlock where you get goods for fruit that you harvest, but it doesn't say that anywhere near the fruit. So I just write on the sheet, because that's what there's just single-use sheets, right? I mean, they're double-sided, but double-use sheets, and then they get tossed. So you can kind of like write all over them if you need to. So I just make like little notes as I play in different areas to help me remember things. But if you do kind of get distracted in the middle of a chaining combo, it can be really hard to fix that.
So if you have people at your table that you game with that like to ask a lot of questions or interrupt anybody, maybe do a little, what's that word? Forewarning, saying, hey, this is a contested game. Wait for someone to finish their turn, look up, and then maybe you can go ahead and talk to them and ask them questions, like some people might or might not have done during our game. It was me. I admit it. But yeah, this is a great game from 20th Century Games. Ben Pitchback and Matt Riddle have, I think, another one of these coming out.
I'm actually really excited about it. There's another loaded roll and write coming from Motor City Gameworks, which is one of the publishers of this game, and the design team that did all 3 games that we've talked about today. I do not remember what it's French Quarter,
yeah.
I think is what it's called, and it's coming soon to crowdfunding, and it is going to continue the sort of
not doing the face roll and write.
Yeah, heavier sort of roll and write. And these are not they're not as heavy as some of the roll and writes out there. But they're definitely heavier than, you know, Ganchon Clever or something like that. So, but yeah, there's another one coming out, and I'm pretty excited about that. We had, like I said, we'd started with Fleet the dice game, and I absolutely fell in love. And then we went on to Three Sisters, and Three Sisters has grown on me. And then Motor City was the next one in the series. And Motor City, we've only played a couple of times, but I'm in a similar situation as I was in at the beginning of our time with Three Sisters with Motor City. I'm not loving this, but I'm willing to give it more of a chance because these two are so great that I'm willing to continue to give this one a little bit of chance. Maybe it'll grow on me like Three Sisters did. Part of my like sort of struggles with this one is I don't love the theme. I didn't really love the theme on Fleet either. This is about fishing and like operating a fleet of fishing vessels. Not my favorite theme ever. It's not super attractive or, you know, like fun in my opinion to operate like fishing vessels. Three Sisters is my favorite of all three for the theme. It's about gardening and the sort of garden tricks that some Native Americans would use to grow crops. They consider these sister crops, these three sister crops, to be corn or maize, squash, and beans. And the way that they would cultivate these crops was very symbiotic. And so that's sort of like what Three Sisters is based off of, is gardening in this very symbiotic, cultivated way that the Native Americans came up with. And then Motor City is all about like car manufacturing. Improving. Yeah, you're like manufacturing cars and selling cars. So this is definitely by far my least favorite for theme wise. And it is also the most complex for those chaining things. So this one has got complex chains. This one has more complex chains. This one has the most complex chains, in my opinion. And it, while it is sometimes easy to lose track of what you're doing in Fleet, for the most part, if you're like paying enough attention, you got this, no problem. If you're used to playing, you know, modern games. Three Sisters, every once in a while, you can just completely lose track of what you're doing, especially if you get interrupted or something like that. And there's, like I said, there's no indicators in the game to help you remember where you were at in that step-by-step process, or what you were doing, or what you needed to do next, or that kind of thing. Motor City is like this one is like the basics, and this one's like 10 times harder than this one as far as like keeping track of that kind of stuff, and then this one is like 10 times harder than this one. So if you lose track of what you're doing in Motor City so far, it seems like it's incredibly difficult to right that ship once you sort of lose track of what you're doing in Motor City. But if you concentrate hard enough, that's not always a problem. But again, with the theme here and some of the gameplay, it's just not quite as fun to me as either one of these. However, because this one has grown on me so very much, I'm willing to give this one a chance.
Preach! So we saw the trilogy so far. We'll see if this continues like the Fast and Furious movies, where there's continually more and more and more of these roll and writes. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed this video and our little 2 cents on Three Sisters and how it's grown on us from not really liking it to loving it more and more, and probably going to be getting some replacement pads here soon. And the other two and how we feel about those in a quick bit. And excited for the new one that's coming out to crowdfunding, whenever that might be. But yeah, so we hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you all there. We're going to go play more games. Talk to you guys later. Bye!